Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Junkyard Dawgcast, another preview episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Hill. It is November, believe it or not, and we are in the thick of SEC play, getting ready for Georgia's big game on Saturday against Missouri. And to help us preview this game, we've got the Columbia Daily Tribune's Calum McAndrew. I believe Calum was on the podcast with us last year for what turned out to be a very, very competitive game between the Tigers and the Bulldogs. Calum, how is this Wednesday treating you as we get ready for a game that really may wind up determining who wins the SEC East?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been going good. It's busy times around Columbia, obviously, experiencing a few more wins than I think a lot of people expected. But yeah, we're going good here.
Yeah, I want to kind of start with that, Callum, and I don't think I'm alone in this. That a lot of people thought Missouri may be, in the bottom of the SEC East. You kind of wondered about Eli Drinkwit's job, and they've done a terrific job. 7-1 overall, 3-1 in conference. They're number 12 in that initial college football playoff rankings. Just what's been the vibe around this team this year with the success they've had, and like we said, going into a very big game when it comes to the conference.
Yeah, absolutely. Just speaking with the players and the coaches yesterday, it's tough to tell when people are maybe putting on a facade. I mean, I don't want to say fish out of water, but this is heights that they haven't reached in quite a while. They're on their best start to a season since 2013. That's their highest ever ranking in the CFP poll, but they seem to be pretty calm, pretty relaxed. That this is kind of where they almost expected they would be at this point in the season. They've kind of gone through with that mantra all year. I don't see any signs that they're feeling nervous or anxious about where they are. I think this is kind of the belief. I think there's a general calmness around the program right now, which really, I mean, you wouldn't expect for a team that's kind of been that middling team in the SEC for the last couple of years.
Just for you, because you've covered this team, what stands out to you as the biggest difference this year compared to, say, 2022?
They're really getting all facets of the game going together. I mean, you look back to 2021 where they were pretty competent on offense. They had Connor Bazelak, who wasn't fantastic that year, but he was still the SEC Freshman of the year before, and they still had pieces to. They had Tyler Beatty, who just went for obscene yards and really got them a lot of wins that year. But their defense wasn't very good. They were just hemorrhaging yards, on the run, and just couldn't get that fast. Last year, they couldn't get their offense going to save themselves. Brady Cook's first year as starter just didn't have the pieces around him to really get anything going. And their defense was great. You think back to that Georgia game where they really stifled Stetson Bennett and Code for three quarters pretty effectively, but they just couldn't put it all together. This year, they've really meshed it together. They've really got the pieces they needed in the transfer portal. They've supplemented their team well. There's really not a glaring weakness on the team anymore, which there has been for the past couple of years. Putting that all together is kind of how they've got here, and then it's kind of culminated in where they are now.
Let's start with Brady Cook. Obviously, he's done such a good job this year. Had a streak there of not throwing any interceptions. Very impressive. What has stood out to you about his play and how important he's been to the offense's success?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he is the offense. I mean, they entered this year with this alleged quarterback battle between him and Sam Horn, the guy from Georgia, the guy, the 4-star recruit. But all we ever hear about Brady Cook is how important he is to the team, how important he is, his leadership qualities are, how important he is just knowing the offense, understanding the offense, building relationships with the guys on the team. And it's really showed this year, and he's matched that with some really stellar play. I mean, I think he went 350 passes without throwing an interception, just obscene numbers. Yeah, he's really meshed that trust that he's instilled with his teammates and with the coaches with some stellar play. He's much more comfortable. He's protected better. He's making better throws. He's leading drives better. Just an all round. It's night and day from where he was last year on the field. But all those leadership qualities have stayed the same. My cat has decided is coming in for a guest appearance today.
Totally fine. Totally fine. We'll take all the expert opinions we will get. I want to move on to the run game. Cody Shader was a guy that played really well in that matchup last year. I mean, pretty much the play of the game is him running to like the 1, and Malachi starts getting a tackle.
Right.
They wind up getting him out of the end zone. But, he's not done it alone this year. How big has the run game been with him and the other guys involved on the ground?
Well, I mean, increasingly more so in recent weeks, it has just been Cody Shader. You look at, I think against South Carolina, he played 60 of the 65 offensive snaps. He took every single carry. He was in that game for the full shebang. He's, for those that don't know, he's such an interesting story as well. He was a Division II transfer. He came from Truman State, a couple hours north of Columbia. He was a walk-on. He was going to be the 6th-string running back. Eli Drinkwitz had no intention of ever playing, and he's come up, and he's now, he's, I think, leading the SEC in rushing yards right now. A really important football player. If you ask him, it's all starting up front for them. They've obviously got 2 extremely talented tackles at the moment, Javon Foster and Armin Membu, that he's just working with those zone reads. He's just tailing them a lot and really getting a lot of yards before contact, which has been very important for him. That's where he's really been able to excel, not so much after after contact, but he's, a really cool story. He's been so important to this team. Really, just keeps on scoring, which never hurts.
Yeah, anytime you can get that, you will certainly take it. Moving on to the receivers, they lose Dominic Love, who's going to be a big part of the storyline this week. But obviously, they got Luther Burden and several other big time receivers. What stands out to you about this receiving core and what they've accomplished to this point in the season?
Absolutely, they complement each other so well. That's the huge part about this. They went to the portal and got Theo Wees, a former 5-star guy from Oklahoma. He's a 6'3", 6'4", really talented Jax receiver. And he's been exceptional, especially in the end zone. They're able to target him, get him matchups that they like, and he's really been effective in that facet of the game. But having Luther Burden move to the slot after Dominic Love left is just, it's a match made in heaven. He is so good at getting yards after the catch. He is so good at creating something out of absolutely nothing. So putting him there and just getting the ball in his hands, which is what everybody wished when this guy, the number 3 recruit in the nation, signed. What everyone wished they would see out of him, you're now seeing. But the complement between him and Theo Wees really has been, if Luther's getting in double coverage, you're getting a good matchup with Thies, who has some of the safest hands I think I've ever seen. It really is working on all fronts for them on that front at the moment. And then they've just got a lot of other guys that they can turn to as well. They've got this freshman that ran a 10.2 second 100 meter in high school, who's been just, if they want to send them, they can, that never hurts. They've got Mookie Cooper, who's such a good short yardage option, really been effective in the short passing game. They have a really deep receiver room. It's what they'd said at the start of the season, but you never know how much to believe. But it's really showing up at the moment. And it starts with Wees and Burden, obviously.
When we talked to Kirby Smart on Tuesday night, he talked a little bit about Kirby Moore and what sort of caught his attention from him. How big of an asset do you feel like Kirby Moore has been, and what he's been able to do with this offense?
Night and day from where they were last year. And I think that it's deeper than just, hey, this guy's a great play caller. Eli Drinkwitz got some flack, for not getting the offense, meant to be this offensive guru, and the offense didn't look anything like that this time last year. But, when you're the head coach, I think he really was stretching himself way too thin, coaching quarterbacks, calling the plays, being a head coach, doing this, doing that, doing that. Bringing Kirby Moore in has just given them the freedom to do more individualized coaching, to have someone specified to calling the plays on game days and letting Drinkwitz be Drinkwitz on the sideline. But to the scheme itself, Moore had so much success at Fresno State. Obviously his brother Calum Moore is an NFL coordinator. The scheme is so much more varied, so much more multiple than it was last year. They really have so much more options, and that given they have more offensive weapons to work with than they did at this time last year. But he's been such a useful addition to the program. That was a smart move.
I have to admit, I did not realize that Kirby and Kellen were brothers. So you got the coaching right there.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. I think Calum's at the Chargers now.
yeah, he is. He is. Uh, Flipping over to the defense, Calum, what do you feel like is the strength of this defense? What has allowed them, or on the whole, really outside of that LSU game, to play as strong as they have on the defensive front?
One name, Chris Abrams joined. I mean, this guy he's if not one of the most talented cornerback in the country. I mean, he is just an absolute rock at corner. Just, I mean, Blake Baker said it last week, the defensive coordinator. When he's matched up, there's very few times he's actually getting beat, and it's so interesting to watch teams still go after him because it very rarely works. Now, obviously, Georgia has way more than anyone that Mizzou has played so far this season, so that'll be an incredibly interesting matchup to see who they stick on Chris Abrams' drain and who they target him. But really, two excellent cornerbacks. Ennis Rakestraw has been dealing with some injuries, but still an excellent option there. Mark Clark and Drayden Norwood are two Power 5 transfers that are having good seasons as well, especially when Rakestraw's been out. But really, the overarching strength of this Mizzou defense is its experience. I think they returned 8 of their 11 starters. They have a lot of guys that have played a lot of football. They've supplemented that with a lot of guys that have played a lot of football. And that's really showing. They weren't quite where they wanted to be in the first couple of games of the season. But as it's progressed, they jumped out to a 24-3 lead against South Carolina, and there wasn't a universe South Carolina was ever going to overturn that. They completely limited what is not a great South Carolina team, albeit, but they completely limited them to almost nothing. That experience is beginning to show. It's a lot of guys that have done this for quite a while. So it's a good time, I think, on the Mizzou defense. I think they've seen it, been there.
I have to say that Chris Abrams' drain has a special place in my heart from watching him in high school at Spanish Fort. I remember covering a playoff game. It would have been the state semifinals, and Calum, he beat Opelika High School by himself. I mean, like, he was at quarterback. His team, their quarterback had gotten hurt maybe the second or third game of the year, and they were like, okay, we're just going to put Chris at quarterback, let him run around. And he made it work. I don't know that they won the state championship that year, but I know they got there, and it was because of Chris Abrams' drain.
I did a story on him, and the high school coach, I think it was Ben Blackman, was talking to me. He was like, we had him out on one series, took this sweep just around 60 yards to the house, turned around, came out at safety in the next drive, and picked it off. And I mean, just an incredible athlete. He was recruited as a wide receiver. He moved to the nickel in his sophomore year. He's a cornerback now. They're switching him around all over the place, but he's been good wherever they put him. A really, really, really good athlete.
Yeah, a guy like that, you just put him on the field, he's going to make plays. Let's take a quick break, come back, and talk specifically about Saturday, the keys, and what we're looking for in this matchup between Missouri and Georgia. Welcome back, everybody. Well, Calum, let's start with Dominic Love. He's been a big part of the conversation here in Athens. Haven't had a chance to talk to him, though we did have a chance to talk to him before the Florida game. He talked a little bit about being excited to play his old team, getting a chance to see the Tigers come to Athens. How much talk has there been about Dominic this week and just what this matchup is going to be, seeing the former Tigers receiver and trying to find a way to slow him down?
Yeah, we talked a little bit earlier about there being some protruding calmness around the Mizzou team. I mean, I think their media training's working because they, anytime Dominic Love came up, it was best buds, wish him well. Maybe not this weekend, but it'll be good to see him. Obviously, we asked Brady Cook about it. I think they're very good friends, and he's excited to see him. He's going to be a part of the conversation. He was such a big part of this Mizzou offense last year, a really, really, really talented receiver. And it's funny, when you look back at how good he was, it kind of looks like Mizzou's upgraded with Luther Burden moving over to Lovett's old position. That might not necessarily be the case, but I mean, it certainly looks that way on paper with how good Burden's been. But no, Lovett's obviously going to be a part of the conversation. The guys are keeping pretty stum about it. They're really not saying anything that's going to get them a post on a message board anywhere. I think that's the
really hurts us, Calum. We really need, over on the Junkyard, we want those guys talking. But, it could be very well, like you said, a situation where it benefited everybody. Dominic has been very productive at Georgia,
right.
but it's given Luther a chance to switch up a little bit. And obviously, he's played very, very well in the slot.
Yeah, absolutely.
So looking into this game, what to you are the keys for Missouri? What does Missouri have to do to go on the road, play in what's probably going to be a pretty loud Sanford Stadium, and have a chance to pull off this upset?
Look, I mean, there's no secrets here. Mizzou has to play its best game of the season. They played good against Kentucky for 3 quarters. They played good against South Carolina for the first half and some change. They played good against certain teams, but they have to put a 4-quarter game together. What they did against LSU really showed that. Another really excellent team in college football right now. They played 2.5, 3 quarters of really good football. That's not enough when you're going up against a guy like Jaden Daniels, and it's not going to be enough when they go up against Carson Beck and Lad McConkey and the just plethora of elite players that Georgia has. They have to get their pass rush going. That's been not hot and cold, but it's been very, very clear that when they can affect the quarterback, when they can get Darius Robinson and Johnny Walker moving on the edges, when they can really hound the opposition quarterback, they've been stellar. That has really been a key for them because they are very solid everywhere else. But when they get that going, they become a top 20 defense in college football. They have to continue their offensive efficiency. Brady Cook has been, even in the past couple of games where he wasn't putting up the 350 he put up against Kansas State, the 400 he put up against Vandy. Even then, when he's only putting up a couple hundred yards, they've been so efficient on offense that hasn't really mattered. They haven't needed these astronomical numbers. Don't need to do that again. They'll need to be efficient with how they run their offense. They can't afford to make, rookie mistakes there. They can't afford to turn the ball over a lot. I think a lot of that's pretty obvious, but they need to put 4 quarters of football together, which really would be the first time this season. That is, I mean, it's Georgia,
No better time to do it than playing the 2-time defending national champions. Calum, how do you see this playing out on Saturday? If you want to give a score prediction, you can, but otherwise, how do you think this thing goes?
I'm not usually averse to giving score predictions, but I really am this time because I honestly have no clue how this one's going to go. I think it's going to be an incredibly entertaining game. This is the best Mizzou team that we've seen since they reached the SEC championships a decade ago. This is obviously one of the, if not the best team in college football. I think this is going to be a really entertaining game. There is a lot on the line. Eli Drinkwitz and co were trying to diffuse that a little bit, saying, hey, whatever happens Saturday, season's not over. We've still got a lot to play for either way. Even if we do win, the SEC isn't wrapped up at that case. I think it's going to be an incredibly entertaining game of football. It is, I would say, from what I've seen, probably the 2 best teams in the SEC East. I think Mizzou could potentially stake that claim for being the second best team in the East right now. How it's going to go, I'm going to let Saturday take care of itself. I think it's going to be a fun one. It's Georgia. It could be a blowout. It could be, if they turn it on like they did against Florida after that opening drive, then all bets are off. But I think this is a pretty talented Missouri team that should give Georgia a pretty competitive game.
Calum, I've gone back and forth on a score prediction. I feel like I can't really decide what I think about Missouri. I'm going to lock it in. I'm going to say Georgia 41-24. I do think it's going to be closer than that. I could see that fourth quarter kind of giving Georgia an opportunity to sort of put the game away. My biggest question is Missouri's defense. Can they get the stops against Georgia's offense that's done a very good job of Carson Beck and company? Because I really think that Brady Cook and company can put up points. And I could see this potentially becoming a shootout. I'm going to say Georgia wins by 17, but I think it's got a chance to be a very entertaining game.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree that I think it will be, no matter what, I don't think it will be a one-way shootout.
We will see for sure. I'll rattle off real quick for everyone else at Dogs 24/7. Ben Wolk's got 35-20 Georgia, and I can't believe both of our other staff members decided to give us little details. He says Don Lovett finds the end zone twice, which I'm sure Missouri is going to be very thrilled about. And Kip Adams says Georgia wins 38-17. Carson Beck throws for 400 yards. So looks like, hey, if you guys want to pass along some bulletin board material, the guys over at Dogs
There you go.
24/7,
Yeah.
they don't really think very highly, I guess, of the Tigers defense.
Yeah. I mean, I've not really got much to add to that. I think they are a little bit better than that, but we will see. I mean, Saturday will take care of itself.
Definitely. Well, Calum, I really appreciate you taking the time to pop on. Please be sure to let everybody who's listening, everybody who's watching, know where they can follow you. And if there's stories that you're working on right now over the Daily Tribune that you want to plug, by all means, go ahead and do that now.
Yeah, absolutely. You can catch me on Twitter at C_McAndrew95. I'm pretty active on there, as we need to be. Or I guess it's X now, but whatever. Yeah, working on a couple of stories right now. Got some stuff coming out with basketball approaching as well. Going to be doing some features on that front with Dennis Gates and co, having a pretty exciting basketball team right now. So busy times over in Columbia. There will be plenty of stuff if you decide to come on over.
Before we get out of here, what is the outlook for Missouri basketball as season's right around the corner?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they have the challenge of replacing Kobe Brown, a first-round pick, Demoy Hodge, just an elite shooter, and now an LA Laker. They have that challenge of replacing that production, but I think the overarching key to that is that they have Dennis Gates, who is, I mean, one of the rising stars in college basketball coaching. I think he's really hit the portal extremely well. They are recruiting at an unseen heights right now. I mean, I think it's the number 2 class in 2024, which obviously won't come into effect till next year, but really a lot of momentum around the program. Not predicted as highly as I think they believe they should be, but we'll see. I mean, they've got a lot of guys that really fit Gates' style coming in, which it should be entertaining. They were entertaining last year, and I would expect more of the same this year.
Be excited to watch the Tigers and honestly the entire SEC. I feel like this is going to be a very fun season.
Absolutely.
Of basketball, and I'm sure we're
Absolutely.
going to be all plugged in with that. Well, we'll wrap it up right there. Again, Calum, I really appreciate you coming on. Appreciate everyone who watched this live, everyone who's listening to it after the fact. If you haven't already, go to Dawgs247.com, subscribe, get all the recruiting intel, all the team news, the men's basketball recruiting and team news. A lot of action over there with Mike White and company here lately. And also go to Dawgs247 on YouTube. Go subscribe there. You got the Kirby Smart press conferences, player interviews, Mike White press conferences, and men's basketball player interviews there as well. So for Calum McAndrew, I am Jordan Hill. Until next time, take care, everybody.
Thanks, Rob.
All right. Thanks so much, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to pop on.
No, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Definitely. So are you going to be there on Saturday?
Yeah, flying down to Atlanta on Friday night, so I'll be there.
Great. If you got any issues or need anything, just feel free to hit me up.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. I'm going to run. Thanks so much, Calum.
So, yep. See you Saturday. Bye.